good? Wow, we have a packed house. We are so glad you are here joining us in a beautiful air conditioning room. God bless air conditioning, right? Hey, we are so excited. Here at Soulfest, we have what we call the Heart of the Artist, and it's hosted by an amazing man, Justin McRoberts. Anyone know Justin a little bit? Such a great guy. So we will bring Justin out, and he will introduce our next artist.
Hey, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. As we've said before, it doesn't work if you're not here. Everyone thanks the artists and everybody for showing up, but like if you're not here, we're just talking. Seth Godin is one of my favorite voices in American culture when it comes to the thought around art and commerce. He suggests, in fact, just flat out says, that art is anything you create. Hear me say it. Art is anything you create that forges a connection between people. Someone say amen? So I can play around in my room, I can journal, and all that's great. It becomes art when it actually connects with another human being. You can listen to Zach's music in your car. You might have 8-track tapes. I don't know what you have. Y'all different people than me. But the difference showing up here live is there's a different depth of connection. Someone say amen? I would go so far as to say that that is actually the truly divine orientation of the gift of art. It's not entertainment. It's not even inspiration. It's that you and I connect with one another and with artists in a way that makes us more human, in a way in which we got to see each other and see the world in which we're living in a grander, more beautiful context. And that's why we do this series here at Soulfest called The Heart of the Artist, because he's not just writing songs because he can. He could do that and leave them in his room. He's actually making those available to you because it is the connection that matters. So will you please give a warm Soulfest welcome to Mr. Zach Williams.
Thank you, God. Thank y'all.
How's the summer so far?
It's been great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Highlights up to this point. I mean, we're kind of coming towards the tail end of the summer. It's a very different season rock and roll wise.
Yeah. Well, honestly, we've only played a couple of shows since 1st of May. We kind of took the summer off. Last year was a busy summer trying to play catch up from making up shows from COVID, and so I've spent...
From what? What was that?
COVID.
What was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. I hadn't heard any much about it anymore.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, just kind of...
But no, we have. I spent a lot of time with my family this year. I haven't had a chance to really do that in the last few years, and so...
You can clap for that.
you.
That's good.
Took some vacations. My mom and dad celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary.
50?
So
Come on.
We spent a week. We spent a week at the beach with my family, and then we spent about 10 days in Hawaii. I'd never been to Hawaii, and so
that's fantastic.
That
You'd never been?
I'd never been, other than just being in the airport. We'd never spent any time there, and so this was like a bucket list vacation.
Did you feel that weird like Hawaii vacation pressure, like you'd never been before, and it has to be epic?
We did, but we kind of lucked out on an Airbnb on the beach, and so we kind of chilled the whole time. So we did a submarine ride, and we took a tour of the island, and that was about all we did. So the rest of the time we was just hanging at the pool. So
that's really good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Talk about coming into the fall. You just dropped a single. You got a fall tour coming, new record. Is there a different energy for you when you've got new stuff coming out? Like what's like, because you can go through a year. You've gone 18 months at some point between projects. What's the difference like for you being out here playing songs and you got new stuff coming out?
I mean, absolutely. I think, for myself, I mean, it's always exciting. Every night's different. I don't think it'll ever get old for me. But when you've worked on something for a year and a half and you're proud of it and you can't wait to share it with the world, there's no better feeling than to come out and play a new song. And especially when you come out and play a new song and everybody's already learned it and singing it back to you. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're about to be busy. This is like, I think between now and the mid-December, we've got maybe 55, 60 shows. Wow. And so we've only played about 40 to this point. So our season's about to get
You're about to double
slammed.
up in a real short span of time.
We are, yeah.
Do you like the road? love the road? Is it a necessary thing? Are you the kind of cat like you're on the road and it's a very cool energy, and then do you have to retreat? Talk about like your relationship with
It's a
travel.
love-hate. I mean, I love it, and sometimes I hate it, you know. But I love playing music. I love sharing my story. I feel like I would be doing this in some sort of way, no matter what. You know, creating music and art. But I feel like God's prepared me and my family for this. You know, my two youngest children know nothing other than me always traveling and being on the road.
Yeah.
You know, spent a number of years in a rock band and lived a completely different life.
Yeah.
And so I think that season, you know, and the things that I struggled with and that me and my family went through prepared me for what I'm doing now. And
Yeah.
I think it set me up, you know, to have this platform and to share with the world, you know, my story. But I love traveling. You know, I couldn't do it without my wife. She's a pretty independent woman,
Yeah.
and she makes it run. She homeschools, and we have a pretty flexible family schedule, so they can come out anytime. And
Yes.
you know, the good thing about where I'm at now in my life, I'm never playing a show that I wouldn't want my family at. So
That's good.
That makes it a lot better.
That's real good. You can clap for that. In a few minutes, we're going to turn I'm going to turn out towards you and ask if you've got questions. So what I'm going to ask you to do over the next few moments is, as you've got questions that pop on in your brain, if you're ADHD like me, that's an actual diagnosis. Or if you're just someone who forgets, like get that question down, make sure you got it. We're going to have a moment for you to do that, so keep that in your brain. That time is coming. Talking about having kids, your relationship with your audience, specifically since like 2016, traveling writing like this particular genre of songs. How do you feel like your relationship with your audience has changed? Like as a person, do you think about the folks in front of you differently? How's that grown and evolved over time?
I think for me it started when, and I'll talk about this tonight when I set up a few songs, but this all kind of started for me with prison ministry. You know, I was in a season of my life where I'd kind of put music down. I was walked away from it. I just left a band that I'd traveled in for a number of years. We were involved in a church, and we ended up signing up to go share our testimony at a prison. And I was kind of trying to decide what God wanted me to do with my life. I was like, am I supposed to be playing music, or am I supposed to just walk away from this and work my construction job and, you know, take on my dad's business and do this? And we went and shared our story at this prison, and I played this song at the end of it, and there were 35 women that gave their lives to the Lord at this women's prison, and I felt like God was just saying, thank you. And I felt like God was saying, Zach, you know, if you need this aha moment, here it is. Like, this is what I want you to do with your music, and these are the people and the places. And so a year later.
What year was that?
2012, 2013 maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So we started doing prison ministry, and a year later, the church I was at asked me to come help them launch a campus. And I had no credentials to be leading worship or doing anything like that, other than I grew up in church, and my dad was a worship leader growing up, and so I'd been around it. And so I helped them launch this campus, and I went to work for them as their campus director and worship leader, and started this new campus, and it was called The Refuge. And the people that started coming to this service were Celebrate Recovery and Jumpstart Ministries, and a lot of folks that had struggled. And so I started getting to hear their stories, and I would start trying to pick the right song for that service, and started trying to write songs for those stories. And I realized, you know, we've all got very similar stories. You know, a lot of people don't like to talk about it, but if you really get down to it, I mean, we're all broken, you know, and Jesus is the one thing we all have in common that we need. And so as that kind of grew, ended up getting to write some music in Nashville, and wrote Chainbreaker, and then ended up with the record deal. And I think very early in me touring as an artist, I realized, like, my audience and who they were, and like the people that were coming, and I started seeing.
You actually start to see them.
Well, you just started to see it, and other people started to see it. I mean, I would have booking agents and people from record labels and other artists that would come to me and say, man, you're bringing a totally different crowd of people to Christian concerts, which I loved it, because when I started working at church, I took and went to all the bars in my local town and drug all these musicians out of the bars and said, hey, why don't you start coming to church with me, and let's have a church band.
Come on now.
And so that was kind of how it worked. And so I started seeing those folks come to my shows and realizing like this is my audience, and these are the people that I'm writing music for, and these are the people that's connecting with me. And so I've just tried to stay as honest and true and real and transparent as I can. And I feel like, as long as I can do that and share my story, talking about my seasons of life and the things that I'm walking through, I feel like if I can connect on that level, then hopefully I'll be doing this for a long time.
That's powerful. So, that's really good. That memory, right? Of the women's ministry, the women's prison moment. It is a beautiful and actually regular thing that God does with us. Is He won't replace memories. He won't like remove a memory, because we just have that stuff on our minds that like holds us back or whatever, like kind of drags us down. But then there are these other memories that like counterbalance those memories. Like, yes, this was or is true in some way. Yeah, but there's this. Yeah. I remember hearing Johnny Lang talk about like the first time he played the song Red Light live as a guy who was like just on the other end of his own recovery, and watching a live audience of a whole lot of recovery folks respond to that moment. And that was that turning point for him. It's like, oh snap, this is a completely different world that I'm living in. Yeah. Like I said, we're gonna do some questions from you. This fall, the tour, talk about the record. What are your hopes and dreams for this specific record?
I feel like, it's been almost 3 years since I've released a new album, and I feel like people have been waiting long enough, so we're putting out a 15-song record. It comes out September 30th. Super excited about it. The album is going to be called 100 Highways, and it's just kind of, I feel like for me as a songwriter, maybe this is my most mature record, deepest as far as like talking about my past. And I feel like there was a lot of things I talked about in my first two records that was going on that God was doing in my life, and I feel like with this record, I'm continuing that of what He is continuing to do, but like this reflection of my past of like, man, all this stuff that I went through, all these roads have led me to where I'm at today, and this is kind of that record for me. We start our tour on September 14th, and Ben Fuller is going to be joining me for that, and
Fantastic.
So it's going to be great. That dude is full of energy. If you've gotten a chance to talk to him,
oh yeah,
he is on fire, and I feel like the message he's bringing is perfect for my audience and the people that we feel like we're trying to reach, and so. We're going to go out and do 35 shows, and then he's going to continue into the Christmas tour, and we're going to go out and do a Christmas tour together. So That's the rest of this year, and I'm excited.
That sounds like a good year. That's real good. Questions from the floor. What I'm going to have you do is you're going to raise your hand. I'm going to call. Look at you. I didn't even finish this. It's like I have one right now. You will call on me, and I'm going to ask you your name. You're going to be real loud, and then I will repeat the question on the microphone. So we're going to have a conversation. What's your name?
My name is Denise.
Hi, Denise. What's your question? She wants you to talk about the energy, sort of,
With Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Well, it was awesome. I mean, I can't say enough good things about her. There's a reason why she's a legend. The fact that she, the coolest thing I think about the whole thing, that one of the sweetest things I could say about her is she never took a royalty. She never wanted a single dollar to be on this song. She heard it. I got a demo back on this song, and I thought, man, this is great, but it could be better with somebody else. And my wife actually said, you should see if Dolly Parton would sing on this. And I laughed, and I was like, sure, I'll just call her up and see if she wants to sing on my song. And it took a couple of months of tracking down how to get her this demo. And she said, I never made it through the chorus. She said, I heard it and said, I want to be a part of this song. And so we met at a studio in Nashville and worked on this for about 5 hours. And she was unbelievable. I mean, every time I would think that was the take, she would just throw her hands up. She's like, oh, I'm starting to feel the spirit. Let me have another one. And I was like, go for it. Like, sing as long as you want. So
I feel the spirit. Let me have another one.
But she was so cool,
Yeah.
And she's awesome. And I guess I could say I'm about to go and record a Christmas special with Dolly for this year. So yeah, she asked me if I would sing "There Was Jesus" with her for her Christmas special.
That's
so
fantastic.
That's pretty cool. So yeah. you guys watch out for that. So
Yeah. Talk about for a moment. I mean, that's one of those, and it's a thing that folks will say about Dolly specifically, is there aren't stars in the world bigger than Dolly Parton. Like,
everybody knows who she is.
Everyone knows who she is.
But
you hang with her, and she's a human.
She's down to earth. I mean, there's a reason why she's had the career she's had, and you realize it when you meet her. She takes the time out to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And she's so aware of her surroundings, and when you're talking to her, she makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. And it's great.
Does that impact the way you see yourself as a recognizable figure? Like,
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to use the word celebrity because it's so laden with all kinds
I
of garbage.
believe that, I think Charlie Daniels said it, but I've read his book, and he talks about, after concerts, and I've seen the same thing when I met him backstage. He was the same way. He knew everything that was going on around him, and he made sure he would stand there for hours, and he would do these USO tours for troops.
Yep.
And after his show, he would stand sometimes till 3 o'clock in the morning talking to these guys, and he was like, these guys have given me the lifestyle that I've been able to live.
Yeah.
Why would I not take the time to go and hang out?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, for me, it's kind of just remembering where you came from and your roots. I think that's part of it, and I'm no better than anybody else, and I don't want somebody to think that I think that way. So.
That's good. That's real good. Another question. You're right here in the green with the sunglasses. Who are you?
Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Is there any concerts in New England either this fall or at Christmas?
Do you have fall tour or Christmas tour dates in New England that you know of?
I'm going to have to ask my manager. Where are you at? Do I have? New York. That's the closest, I guess. Sorry.
All the New Englanders, we're not going to New York for that show. I'm not going to New York for that show. New York? I said New England. What are you talking about?
That wasn't my answer, so sorry.
Anything close to Boston? A couple more from the floor. Right here.
What motivated you to write the song, We're More Like Jesus?
What motivated you to write the song?
Oh, yeah. That for me is, like I said earlier, I try to be honest and raw, but I feel like a lot of times as, a Christian artist, people just assume that your life is perfect and you got it all figured out and you don't have bad days, but being a Christian is hard. Honestly, it was easier to not be a Christian whenever I was living the life I had. I didn't have a conviction over anything I did, and I just kind of came and went. And your life doesn't get better automatically when you come to know Jesus. And that was kind of the idea. I remember as a kid growing up in church, and the fruits of the Spirit were always the things that we strive to try to be like. And I probably mess it up more than I get it right, and that was kind of an honest look into like my life as who I am. Like I have those days where I, talk the talk, but I'm not walking it, and I have the days where I miss it. But my goal in life every day is to be more like Him and less like myself. And so, if I can remind myself that, then that's what I'm trying to do.
Right here with the hat on. Yeah, he's asking about there was a time when Southern Rock was more prominent, and it seems to have disappeared. What's your experience? What's going on?
Man, I hear you on that. I mean, it has, but I'm trying to keep it alive with the stuff that I'm doing. Because I do. I grew up on that music. I grew up on Christian music. My first concert as a kid was Petra. My dad took me to a Petra concert when I was 8 years old. And Mylon Lefebvre was probably my favorite Christian rock band ever. So I grew up on a lot of that. I grew up on Russ Taft and the Imperials and listening to those bands. But my dad had two younger brothers that listened to Southern rock, and so I cut my teeth on, Bad Company and Allman Brothers and Bob Seger and Leonard Skinner. And so it's always been there, for me, and I'm so grateful that CCM and Christian music fans have accepted the fact that it's the only thing I can do, I sound like I sound, and but I think it's from where I, was raised and the music I listen to. But I'm going to do my best to keep it going. So
that's real good. That's good. Let's do one more for the floor from right now. You got one right here. What's your name?
My name's Desiree. First of all, I love you. You're my absolute favorite artist.
She's asking if you have any artists that you're really paying attention to, that you really like or moved
Yeah.
by. Who do you connect with right now?
I mean, every time I get to be around the Big Daddy Weave guys, I mean, just with my,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like they're the real deal everywhere they go, on and off stage. You know, I was fortunate enough whenever I started my career in Christian music to kind of be with those guys for about a year.
Yeah.
You know, anybody that knows my story knows that their song changed my life. You know, I heard that in Europe while I was on tour. And Mike was one of the first people to ask me to go on tour and open for them. And so to go out with those guys when I first started out my Christian music career and have Big Daddy Weave back me and sing, you know, Chainbreaker every night and get to sing Redeemed and songs like that. I think there's some of the, I get pretty excited when I know I'm doing a show with those guys, and so it's pretty awesome.
That's really good. They were here last year. Anyone was here last year to see Big Daddy Weave? And they did this session, and it was just, I mean, and you're right. When we talk, you know, in an earlier conversation about Dolly Parton, and these are guys who've had a lot of success. They've been around for close to 20 years, and then you're with the guys, and they care about each other. Mike, at the time, if you remember, like, was real struggling he was struggling real hard with the loss of his bandmate, his brother. Like, it was real hard, and he was here sharing his actual heart. You were ministered to by a guy. I mean, this is a band who was like, hey, we want to take you in.
Yep.
And it wasn't just like there's a guy we want to bring on tour. There was an intentionality to it.
I mean, they've been unbelievably kind to me, and you know, it's pretty cool. You know, they recorded a song I wrote, which for me was like a full circle moment. Pretty unbelievable. And then they're actually recording a new song that I wrote this year. It's going to be on their new record. So it's just really cool, you know, to like be able to kind of give back, I guess you could say, because they've been so good to me. So it's been awesome.
Having done what was like recognizable full-time vocational ministry, like you were invited to be a church pastor person, music guy. People here will receive a lot of what you do and call it ministry. Can you talk a little bit about there's rock and roll, there's ministry, like, is there a line there for you where like this, it's like I'm a musician, and if it ministers to you, great, or like I'm a minister and I use rock and roll? Do you have a feeling for like the line or the tension between those things?
You know, for me, I feel like I'm pretty intentional with the message that I'm trying to get across. You know, the rock and roll just happens to be the outlet for me. Like, it's the only, you know, like I said earlier, I grew up on that. I grew up on that kind of music. It's how I sound. I think anything that I write is going to sound that way. I don't necessarily consider myself a rock and roller or any of that. It's just, you know, I have a message, and that's the way that I get it out. And I feel like, as you know, as having this platform, you know, I'm very intentional about, you know, how I carry myself and what I'm saying and the message that I'm trying to relate to people, because I feel like I said earlier, we all struggle with so many of the same things and go through the same things in life. You know, that's how I get it out. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
That's real good. Some questions from the floor. What do we got here? Let's go right here in the orange. What's your name? Hi, Bridget. Go ahead. What's your question? She's asking about the development of the song "The Devil's a Liar."
Fear's a Liar.
Fear's a Liar.
Well, I was working on finishing my first record as an artist. I'd written maybe 5 songs for an EP, and I was on a tour, and I was going out every night. And I think I had 2 or 3 songs was all I was getting to play. I think I had like 10 or 15 minutes. And I would go out every night and step on stage. I traveled in bands my whole life. You know, for the majority of my music career, I'd always been with bands, and I always felt really comfortable on stage with 4 or 5 other guys. But you strip all that away from you, and you take your kind of comfort zone away, and you're just on stage in the spotlight with a guitar, and you're singing. And here I am in this new genre of music that I just didn't feel worthy to be in yet. And every night I would walk on stage and I would hear this voice that said, "You don't belong here. You don't deserve this. Why don't you go back to what you were doing?" And I started thinking, you know, like, who doesn't hear that voice? You know, we've all heard that voice, whether it's been a mom or a dad or somebody has told you, people in your life that, you know, you've heard these things from. And I was like, man, I want to write a song that's an anthem for people that are struggling with, you know, depression or anxiety or fear. And so we were sitting in a songwrite one afternoon, and it was me and my producer and another songwriter named Jason Ingram, who's written just a bunch of worship songs over the years. And I said, I've got this idea, for this song called Fear is a Liar. What do you guys think? And so we just started trying to find some stuff in the Bible that we thought could back it up. And we came across 1 John 4:18, said there's no fear in love, perfect love casts out all fear. And I was like, so that was kind of the backbone of that, the bridge of that song was, if we've been perfected in God's love, then what are we afraid of? And so that song kind of came out of that season of life for me, something that I really needed to say every night to myself, but also that in turn, realized a whole lot of other people needed to say the same thing. And so, yeah. Thank you.
So good. Right down here in front. What's your name, bud? Patrick?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. What's your question, Benjamin?
My
What is your
favorite
favorite
song that I've made, it might be this new song that I'm going to play tonight. It's called Heart of God. I just released it last Friday. For me, I love sharing my story, and I love, offering that hope and that invitation to people that maybe have never heard the message. And so, I grew up in church. I was a church kid. I was in church my whole life. My dad was a worship leader. I can't tell you how many times I went to the front. I can't tell you how many times I said the prayer. I thought every Sunday maybe I missed a word. Maybe I said it wrong. Maybe I did it wrong. So it never really clicked, just how much, God loves me. I think until I became a father of my own, I had this vision of God sitting on the throne with his arms crossed, just shaking his head at everything I did wrong. And realized, when I gave my life to the Lord, that's the total opposite. He's not shaking his head at us. He chose to go to the cross, and so for me, when I think of God, when I think of who he is, love is the first thing, that's the biggest characteristic. And so I don't feel like people hear that enough. I think people feel, unworthy, and and the thing is we're not, but God knew that before he made us, and so he sent his son to die. And so for me, I think that's just awesome to live in that freedom and to know no matter what I've done, no matter where I've been, no matter what I'm going through, God loves me. And so that's
really
my
good.
favorite.
That's a great question. How old are you, buddy? Fantastic.
Nice.
How old are your kids?
My youngest daughter turns 10 next month. My youngest son turns 13. I have a 19-year-old daughter, and my oldest son just graduates college next Friday. So
Next Friday.
24, yeah.
Wow, that's a big day. Talk about, as a musician, my son is here, he's 12. As a musician, hopes and dreams for your kids, their relationship to music, and a little bit, because you'll get asked all the time, do your kids play? Do they sing? How did you have musical aspirations? How do you do that as a dad who, this is what I do, and I want to pass myself on, but I also don't want you to feel pressure.
No, that's the, for me, I don't feel like I'm not pushing them to be musicians if they don't want to.
Yeah.
Really the only one out of all of them is my youngest daughter. She'll probably be a singer and a musician.
Yeah.
But it's coming naturally. It's not something that I'm like, here's a guitar, let me teach you a chord. It's she's going and grabbing those things and hey, can you teach me? And I'll see her on.
And always the expensive ones.
And yes, exactly.
Yes,
and I'll see her on her iPad, learning the guitar chord. But I didn't, I had no desire to play sports or play music until I couldn't play sports. And I picked up a guitar for the first time when I was 19.
Yeah.
And and that's how it came for me. I had this passion to create or be involved, and I don't know. And me and my wife talk about it a lot. I don't want them growing up feeling like they have big shoes to fill. I want them to be whatever they want to be.
Yes.
And they can be. And so if they decide to play music, it'll be great. And I'll try to give them every opportunity that they can. But if they decide not to, I'm fine with that too. So.
Your dad, you talked about potentially at some point earlier in your life, just doing your dad's business or whatever. What did your parents think about you and music and full time? Did you have those conversations about get a real job? How'd that go?
No, so I went to college for a graphic design degree, and that was around the time that I started playing music. And so I was always into art. Growing up as a kid, I was drew. I loved to draw and do artwork and things like that. And so while I was in college is when I started playing guitar, and I realized I was better at playing guitar and writing songs than I was at my art. So dropped out of college, probably not what my parents wanted me to do. But I've used my graphic design skills to design T-shirts and posters and artwork for records. And so it's God never, he uses everything. You realize, the older you get, when you look back and see, like, God's still using all those things that maybe I thought I wasted. He's figured out a way to use them. No, I mean, my dad was a musician growing up, so he played in bands in high school. Like I said, I grew up as a worship leader's kid, so he thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't think it was great that I was playing dive bar, 3 or 4 nights out of the week, and he didn't like the lifestyle. But he also believed that God had a different plan, and him and my mom prayed for me every day. And so to see that faith, and see what God has done in my family's life and the prayers that they've answered, I think they're just like over the moon. They love it. So
I love that. That's
yeah.
great. That's great.
Thanks.
A couple more for the floor. Let's go. I'm coming to you one second. You'll be number 2. You are number 1 right here. What's your question? What's your name first? What I heard was you have a favorite scripture. And what makes it your favorite scripture?
I do. Jeremiah 29:11 for me is my life verse. My parents, my favorite. It's my favorite because they used to, they would tuck me in at night, and I can just remember them praying that, for God, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper, not to harm you, for hope in the future. As a kid, I thought that was like so sweet, and then as I got older, I was like, well, of course that's what your parents are going to say to you. But I realized when I turned, 33 years old, and God did have this plan for my life, like how important that is to speak that over your family and your children and start to pray that, and believing for your children and their husbands and wives. And so I think that for me, just because I've been able to see that prayer, come to fruition, like that's my favorite.
It's really good. Right over here. What's your name, brother? Yeah, that's you. James, what's your question?
I've been sober a little over 18 months now.
Come on now.
Awesome.
Give it up for that. Good work, brother.
Absolutely. I think looking back, I'm discovering all this kind of for myself right now. I'm working on a book that I'm trying to get out by next year, kind of my story. And I realized, everybody has different addictions, and different things. For me, thankfully, I was never like addicted to a drug or alcohol or things in a way where I had to wake up and have it. I was addicted to being the center of attention. Like that was me. I realized that looking back and thinking about my college years and this guy that I was 110% at whatever I was doing. And if that was a party, I was going to be the best partier. If that was using drugs, I was going to do that better than anybody else. And now I've realized that I put all that into being the best Christian artist that I can be and the best husband and father. And so things like that. I think for me, a lot of people ask me all the time, how'd you kick it? And I'm like, well, I met Jesus, I started going to church. I surrounded myself with people that would hold me accountable and people that had the same interests and things like that. And so I think that when you put those type of people around you that are going to see you and that don't have a problem telling you you're getting out of line, those are the people you need in your life, people that are going to be, that feel like they can confront you on things and I have to have that. I need that. And I feel like I've been fortunate enough that God has put just the right people around me and my family to keep this thing, and so, but I wouldn't be able to do any of it without a relationship with Christ.
Amen. That's real good. Part of what I really like and admire about your question is that those propensities, like that draw, that addictive draw, and folks who have lived in or living in recovery know, it doesn't vanish. Someone say amen? And part of what we end up doing in the same way that the Lord gives us new memories, we have new places to put those same propensities, and they're formed by the places we put them.
Yeah.
That's just a very different story than I just kicked it.
Yeah.
Not that doesn't happen. It does happen. Those miracles happen. But for most of us, it's these energies.
Yeah, the personality
need to be
traits can be used for good or bad.
That's right.
And you just find a way to channel that into good. And so.
What does it look like for you? Again, you're gonna do 50 plus shows between now and the end of the year. That's a lot. Talk about health practices for you, spiritual health, physical health, mental health. Because for some folks, when he said it, he was like, "We're doing 50 shows," and somebody were like, "Oh my gosh." Because somebody's like, "I was out of the house for 3 hours today. Oh, I need to go home." And But the idea of being, 50 days on the road for some folks is like that would ruin them,
Yeah.
and it would. How do you stay healthy physically, emotionally, spiritually, being gone like that? Like, what's that look like for you?
A lot of sleep. Sleep and water are my two best friends. Like,
Amen.
if I didn't drink a lot of water and sleep, I wouldn't be able to sing every night because
Yeah.
an hour and a half. I mean, I think we do 19 songs every set, and I'm going hard the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
there's not really a break in our set. It's funny. I invited a neighbor to a show the other night that lives in my neighborhood, and him and his wife came. And when I got off stage, I was just drenched, and it was about 100 degrees that night. And he was like, "Dude, how do you do?" He was like, "I don't know how you do it." He was like, "The veins in your neck were bulging out. I could see him on the big screen." He was like, "And you're soaking wet." He was like, "How did you not pass out?" And I was like, this is what, it's what you do. You get used to doing it, and I love it,
Yeah.
And so, but
Sleep and water, big deal.
it's tough. The road life is tough. It's not as glorious as everybody thinks it is.
Nope.
We were in New Mexico yesterday morning, and so we were on airplanes all day yesterday, delayed to finally get here and get on a bus at midnight, and then drive from Newark to here. So it's a lot of it's rough on you, but spiritually feeding myself. Everybody, we've all got churches that we are able to live stream. We can watch church anywhere pretty much now.
Yeah.
I've been in the middle of this 40-day devotional, and it's about all the men in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so for me, staying grounded like that and spending 30 minutes every morning with a cup of coffee when the bus is quiet and nobody's around.
Yeah.
Writing, journaling. That's how I do it.
Yeah.
Because it's tough, sometimes. But I do get to have church about 4 or 5 nights a week too. So I get a lot out of that. So that's great.
That's real good. One more from the floor, and then we'll wrap it up pretty soon here. Lito, how'd you meet your wife?
Yeah, I met my wife at a mutual friend's birthday party. We didn't know each other. It's funny, we realize now, growing up as kids, she grew up in about 10 minutes from me in a different town I grew up. And we realized we were at a lot of the same parties and functions in high school that we never knew. We just had mutual friends. And so we go to this birthday party. She's got a boyfriend. I was single. I thought she was cute. This was MySpace days. And I was kind of stalking her on MySpace because I discovered who she was. And so her boyfriend got up to go to the bathroom, and we were in a circle, kind of a corner booth. And I slid in beside her and waited for him to come back and sit down. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to need your phone number." And she was like, "That's my boyfriend." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't care." And so it made an impression, and she gave me her number. They broke up, and I was actually recording a record in Memphis, Tennessee. Just started a record. I was in my old Southern rock band days, and she calls and she says, "Hey, I just broke up with my boyfriend. What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm in Memphis." And she said, "I'm coming to Memphis." And so that was pretty much it. We started dating.
So pretty much MySpace is really the answer to that
We
question.
started dating on May 5th, and we got married a year later on May 6th. And so we've been together ever since, almost 15 years now. And so, but I mean, technology's been, I think it's everybody that travels' best friend. We're able to, put your iPad up or get on your computer and see your kids and your family. And like I said earlier, I just feel like God put me with the right person. She's very independent. She likes her alone time sometimes, as do I. But when I've learned as a touring and doing what I do, it's like the best thing for me to do whenever I'm off the road is to just be present. Put the phone down, hang out with the family, be with the kids. I can go back to work whenever I get on the road. So, but yeah, I think God just prepared both of us for this.
Great question. Thank you.
Thanks.
One of the gifts, one of the benefits of being in any profession, but this one specifically, this long, it's sort of twofold. One is you love it.
Yeah.
Because regardless of your successes, it's hard. You can be incredibly successful and it's still hard. The things that are costly in this job are very costly. So you love it. And you know what you've been through and you know what it takes to make it. Those are the things you didn't know early, and then you slog through, and then you get to a point like this where you are now, where there's a future ahead of you. I'd love for you to talk for a moment about what 15 years from now, you looking back, what will make the next 15 years successful? Because we can stop now and look back and say, here are your success points, the numbers, the achievements, the development. In 15 years, when you look back from this point, what will make the next 15 years successful for you?
I mean, obviously, the awards are great, but that's not the reason why we do any of this. I would be writing songs in my bedroom, regardless of if I was doing it professionally or not. You know, it's my outlet. It's the things I need to say. It's you know, it's like healing for me. And for me, that's what I hope I can do for somebody else. You know, but I think for me, if I get to the end of my career and I look back and realize, you know, I wasn't able to save my own family. You know, I don't want to get to the end of my life or my career and like my kids be like, oh, Dad went out and played music for everybody else, but he was never home. And that's what I don't want. Like, I don't want them to think, well, he went and saved the world, but he couldn't do it for his own children and his family. So to be that example, I think that's, for me, the biggest thing, to have some sort of legacy that they see.
That the people closest to you,
Yeah.
you're good at this, you know this.
Yeah.
Then there's this relationship and
Because
this
to
work.
them, I'm just Dad. Like, none
Yeah.
of this matters to them at all. So.
That is a great,
Yeah.
great answer.
Thank you.
Will you give it up one more time for Zach Williams?
y'all.
And thank him for being here.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, y'all have fun tonight. We'll see
See you
y'all.
guys at Man Jackson in a little bit.
Love you guys.
Bless your hearts.